Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Paul.
And we're going to do a little video on just because you can doesn't mean you should.
If you like what you see here, please which could like, subscribe, share us out if you can on any of your social medias, which could we have Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, so go like us there as well. We do new videos every week, and so let's roll right into it.
Yeah, so come join the gang. And what do we mean when we say just because you can doesn't mean you should? We're going to talk about that in movies. There's a lot that can be said in life about the just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can light matches and eat them doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
And I think our first example of this in a film or movie way is the equivalent of lighting matches and eating them in some ways for a lot of people.
I guess that's a
I'm being unnecessarily rough on this film, I think.
Which is it's Cats, and the reason that we're saying just because you can doesn't mean you should, is the visuals, which could CGI transmorphic of people into cats, it seems to have taken a lot out of the movie itself.
It definitely took the focus off what the movie was going to be. Like, I feel bad picking on Cats the movie because I love Cats the animal, but Cats the movie has already lost a bucket load of money.
Yeah,
it was a subject of ridicule after one trailer before it ever hit cinema, and that's because people saw the visual.
Yeah, it's so eye catching.
It was just overwhelming. It overwhelmed the film that it was going to be. Now, I haven't seen Cats the musical on stage. You have, and I know a lot of people who say it's great.
Yeah.
So the subject matter was there.
Yeah, no, it's a very good show. The music is great. Songs are also fantastic. You get the right singers and everything like that. Right setting, like sets and everything. You got yourself a really, really good show.
The cast didn't let it down. Sorry, no, it sounded like I said the cats, but the cast who played the cats didn't let it down.
No, not at all. You had an all-star cast. You know, you had Idris Elba, which was Ian McKellen,
Dame Judi Dench. You had Taylor Swift and people like that doing, singers doing songs. They had everything going for them, and then they what would you say? They didn't over-engineer the visuals. They over-felined things. What the hell would you even describe that mistake as?
I think because they could essentially make people look so anthropomorphized as cats that they decided this is the best way to bring the best element or the best style of this show, which get together, and it's just too much. Yeah. It's just way too much. I've had people I've heard on Twitter and everything going there's nipples and the weird breast thing, and then this the over 6-pack kind of thing of Idris Elba's cast and stuff. It's but then morph it with which could then so much into a cat form. It just feels a little bit off. Yeah,
and that's one thing the human mind won't take. A whole lot of dissonance if it can't reconcile something. You can watch the most fantastical thing, the most imaginary thing, the most it's not real thing in a movie, and if it's done well enough, the human mind will just go with it. You'll watch animated movies and feel strong and hard about them and cry because they feel real. If you do what they did in Cats, you break that connection with the audience so hard that they don't get to hear the great songs, they don't get to see the good performance or even enjoy the good story.
Yeah.
So they oh God, I was going to say they screwed the pooch.
Right, well that's not going to work, is it? That's what I say to you.
That's one of our examples of just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And one other thing, then onto the next one, another good example of just because you can doesn't mean you should, is The Irishman. And a lot of you are going to go, just because you can make a 3-hour movie doesn't mean you should. I have no problem with 3-hour movies. A lot of my favourite movies are 3-hour movies. Have you seen It Chapter 2? It's actually a really long movie, folks. Now, 3 hour and 20 minutes is not the just because you can. I think if you need to make your film 4 hours, make it 4 hours. But what you don't necessarily need to do is de-age. And I'm not talking about you shouldn't do it because it didn't look good. I'm saying it was unnecessary just because you could de-age those people. We've all watched plenty of films where different actors have played the same character through periods of their life, from childhood all the way up until death.
Yeah.
And you might have 2, 3, 4 sometimes actors playing the same character at different periods. You use the art of filmmaking and the art of storytelling to let the audience know who those people are.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily just de-age them or, we're going to make them all look identical.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
And in The Irishman, it showed itself. There was a few times where I thought, if they'd actually casted for the younger, if they just casted them really well, it would have been a more cohesive film.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't have been watching young Robert De Niro face on old Robert De Niro body walk around and do things.
Yeah. Well, there's also an element of the fact that just because you de-age them doesn't mean that they're going to be able to do the things of a person of that age.
Yeah.
There's still mannerisms and styles that they've learnt now, and also being slightly etched into their body because of the ravenous time.
Yeah.
That it's kind of makes things a little bit more awkward. It's interesting to see young Robert De Niro slightly walk like old Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
His gait has changed.
Even kicking a guy, it's like, okay, I don't know. It's one of those things, though, you have to ask, what are you gaining by doing it? And that's a good way to gauge of just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
What did they gain? They gained having Robert De Niro play Robert De Niro for all of those ages. But did they really gain, as we've already covered? Many films have used different actors at different ages to play different time periods. So they didn't really gain there.
No. I think maybe would it kind of be that its star kind of notoriety.
And they did gain publicity, I guess.
Well, not even that, because it was a big kind of talking point for the film. It's more the that you have De Niro all the way through the film
and his acting prowess, etc.
Yeah, okay, kind of thing. And
fair point.
So instead of having to in any way, as you said, show the audience that this person is the younger version of Robert De Niro or anything, they could just show his face and de-age slightly and enough there that you kind of that's Robert De Niro younger.
Well, that is true. Again, and you know what? That's the best argument for it I've heard yet. So I'm glad you made it. And still, I cry, just because they could.
It feels lazy in certain respects.
It feels unnecessary, and that's maybe the most damning thing I can say. If it wasn't necessary, why do it? And to use Robert De Niro or Al Pacino's excellent acting skills, and to be able to say, look, well, we had their acting skills all the way back. You did, but you digitally painted over a lot of their acting skills to make sure they looked younger. So kind of even falls down a little bit there. Are you getting their full range of expression after the de-aging, the smoothing process, whatever it might be? So yeah, that's my second. That's our number 2 spot there.
Well, that leads quite nicely on to the next one, which is essentially the which I'm calling the Lazarus effect, which goes. It's essentially we've seen it a lot in Star Wars as well.
Yeah,
which is essentially bringing back the dead.
Yeah,
which. I don't overly have a problem with it in certain respects.
Yeah. Can I kick in on that?
Yeah,
because
go for it.
I have a very simple line to draw on this. I don't mind Carrie Fisher or Paul Walker or somebody who has passed while a film franchise is being made or a movie's being made using digital effects. Brandon Lee originally, way back in the Crow days. Another example of finishing a film with using some digital effects. If you're having James Dean come back from the dead, not just James Dean come back from the dead 50 or more years later, but if you're having him come back from the dead and you're going to digitally recreate James Dean and have him act in a Vietnam War film, which is not his era of film at all, and have nothing to do with it being James Dean, you're really just taking a job from an actor that should have had the job of being the actor. It's a huge gimmick, and the company, I can't remember what they're called, they have Burt Reynolds and they have all sorts of people on their books that they're like, we'll resurrect these people and make movies with them.
Are you kidding me? I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah,
it's messed up.
It feels ghoulish.
Yeah, and it's also, they can do it just because you can.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you should, because you shouldn't. If they were saying, we're making a film about James Dean and we're going to use digital effects to recreate actual James Dean, I'd be like, cool. Because then he's playing himself, and you're bringing him back from the dead to play himself, not to play a Vietnam War doctor or something. What's the point? What's the point?
No, like, I get your point, because, like, it's along the lines of why I'm not a big fan of, like, you know, the laser shows of musicians.
Oh yeah, like bringing back Tupac and stuff.
Yeah, like I get the point in the sense of kind of like, but it seems gimmicky. With those particular things, it really feels gimmicky.
Yeah,
like the actor's part, it feels slightly disrespectful, like kind of thing. Like they have a body of work, they have a great body of work.
Yeah,
you know, like you're saying that they have like Ron.
They have, well, on their books, these guys have Chuck Berry, actually, when it comes to, yeah, imagine that. So not only they have actors, but they have musicians as well. So they could actually do untold things with musicians as well.
Well, like as I said, it's slightly disrespectful in my sense, in the fact that they have a body of work, they've done well in their body of work, and like the reason that those things are so cherished and everything is because, you know, they have sadly passed away.
Yeah,
like it is very much sad to see, like, you know, the passing of David Bowie. You know, but if you then have him show up in a TV show, like, you know, 10 like, you know, years later, and he's constantly, like, you know, he's like, as in he is a main part of that TV show or movie, it feels slightly disrespectful in the fact that you don't, like, what is the legality towards that as well?
Well, they've got the rights from the families or whatever, from the estates, and, you know, it's been signed over, so we're always going to use it respectfully. Yeah, you are, until you don't need to be respectful.
But yeah,
you know, what if somebody makes a movie with Burt Reynolds? You know, they resurrect Burt Reynolds, digitally recreate him, and then put him in a movie that politically stands for something that he would have hated. Yeah, you know, one way or the other, whatever side he was on, I don't actually know, but that's not cool. You don't want that post-mortem to have, okay, well, now we're going to make your legacy be that you were really, you know, you loved Nazis or something. It's like, what the hell? Yeah. Also, my real big bone with it all is, why do we need old stars instead of using new talent? Like, I would rather have Adam Driver play the role of somebody than resurrect James Dean to play the role of somebody.
Well, like, if you think about it, Bohemian Rhapsody, like, was a fantastic.
Oh, Rami Malek, it
was a fantastic portrayal of, like, Freddie Mercury. Could you imagine if they essentially just had Freddie Mercury digitally resurrected? We're using resurrected.
Let's say resurrected.
Like, you know, like resurrected. It feels like it would have been like. Bohemian Rhapsody is seen as a kind of like, it is a good film or it's not a good film, but like everybody can say that, you know, the portrayal of Freddie Mercury was really, really well done. Would we have been robbed
of that acting performance? Yeah, we would.
And like, no doubt. I definitely would have chosen the actual. That's weird.
This one annoys me enough that I actually want to move on, because
I completely agree.
To hell with that company that's doing that, and to anybody who's, I would not to judge anybody ill if Charlize Theron is sitting there going, well, I've signed my likeness over to them when I die because it's going to make money for my family and I'm going to be gone. But cool. But the rest of us are here stuck with it, are still going to be shaking our fists at them for probably using you incorrectly. Yeah, like my last thing is like, I know that we have several characters within the Star Wars universe that have this done. But as you said, there's a slight kind of like, they would have wanted it, and it's in continuity. It's like Paul Walker and what Paul Walker's brother did. You know, he filled in and acted. Paul Walker passed away. You know, and they completed the film with his brother, and, you know, did some facial transposition stuff. That's entirely appropriate. Completely fine. But making, you know, Fast and the Furious 26 in 4 years' time or 15 years' time, and be like, and out of a car crash in a ravine climbs out Paul Walker, and everybody's like, oh, this is morbidly sick. It's in poor taste. Which goes with, essentially, that's actually a good way of moving on to actually the next one as well. Actually, I cheated and looked at the list to see what was next too. Hit us. So it's method acting. So, which is it's not always necessary. I'm just putting it out there. Method acting, it's great. I love your commitment to the craft. It's just not always necessary. Like, I learned to make shoes. And do you make shoes in the movie? No. But my character would have at some point in their past. What?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I do get you. Like it's
full of ire right now.
No. Like I do get you because like method acting has its good points and its bad points.
Yeah.
We've got like Daniel, which was oh my god,
Daniel Day-Lewis, like is a method actor, and like there's an element of kind of like being constantly in the role and like. Which is bringing that character out with like Abraham Lincoln, which is it does have an edge to it that does bring out an element to it, but like that can go too far in certain respects. It's what you choose to do. If you say like I think Joaquin Phoenix on Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash biopic, he was like, I want to be referred to as Johnny Cash. Don't anybody call me Joaquin. I want to be Johnny. That makes sense. That's because he wants to inhabit that and he wants to respond to that naturally because he's going to get used to it because repetition makes... There are lots of things that make sense. Heath Ledger locked himself away in a room for a month, worked on the laugh, made himself a little bit manic. Makes sense, getting into character.
Yeah.
But then
that has a dark side to it as well. But we'll go back to that.
But there are people then that choose to do things that are just a little more like, really? That's going to affect the role, or are you just going to do this because it'll sound good afterwards? And I know that sounds cynical, but was it Orson Welles I think said to Dustin Hoffman, there was a whole talk about method acting, and Dustin Hoffman's come out years later and gone, it was an excuse because it was out in an all-night bender or whatever, but he'd done a whole thing where he stayed up for 48 hours before one of the scenes, and I think it was Marathon Man, and Orson Welles just turned and said to him, have you tried acting, dear boy? That's, you don't have to be the character, you act as the character. Yeah. I think there's a little bit of wisdom in that.
Yeah, like I do think there's a line with like that phrase shows in the fact that you are actors. Your position here is essentially like take that on board and then portray it. Yeah. But if you live it, it's a whole different story in the sense like there's sometimes it's admirable, but on other times it's just like you're not using a skill in which we know you have.
Yeah. Good point. Well put.
Like it's like constantly referred to as Johnny in like for Walk the Line is the fact that he can naturally like if someone shouted his name or shouted Johnny, he can naturally react to it.
Exactly.
But then you got like Jared Leto who tried to be method acted with the Joker himself and like just caused hell with the other cast members and stuff,
sending them dead rats and stuff. So the background to that is Jared Leto was trying to creep his fellow cast members out and make them feel weird about him and stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's an element of which kind of like this is the dark side that I was talking about earlier, is like you can go too far with it. Like Heath Ledger talks quite a bit about after he played the Joker that he was never the same. Actually, Mark Hamill, who's the voice actor for the Joker and a lot of the animation thing, has said the same as well. It's a dark character in which he doesn't like to inhabit all of the time because
makes sense.
On top of that, what's his name, the Punisher,
John Bernthal.
Yeah. He's also talked about how his kids don't like when he's playing the Punisher because he's daddy and then he's the Punisher. Yeah. Like they're two people.
Which is why he's smart enough not to method act his way into the Punisher character of I'm actually going to be a ball of rage sitting there all the time intentionally. He was more saying that I inhabited that role as a good actor, and it washed home with me a little bit. Whereas some actors, not giving out, I'm not an actor, but some people do just because they can. They're like, well, I'm going to completely inhabit this role by taking up somewhere in the back story of my character they knitted. So I've actually spent 18 months at knitting camp. Come on, guys, just knock that off. It doesn't make anybody look good.
Calm down with it a little bit. So we're going to go on to the next one, which is also quite good.
I'm full of rage. This is great.
Is the star cameos.
Yeah. Not all stars can act.
No. Like, just because you're a celebrity in any kind of way doesn't mean that you should be there. Yeah. My point is there's a James Franco film. I can't remember what it's called. It's got Bryan Cranston, I believe, in it as well. And it's essentially about his daughter marrying... I think it's Bryan Cranston. Might be wrong.
Could be. No.
Essentially, it's James Franco is like he's an app millionaire, or gay millionaire, and he's marrying this woman, and their family come and meet him, and he's a little bit like crazy kind of thing. But the reason I'm saying this is because Elon Musk turns up in the film.
Oh yeah.
And the reason that I don't like it is because it very much took me out of the movie immediately. Now, it wasn't a brilliant film as well, but it immediately was just like, what the hell is Elon Musk doing there? And they were just like, oh, because he's an app creator and he's a tech mogul. Like, of course, Elon Musk, who's also a tech mogul, would be there at his party. And you're just like, no.
Yeah.
Like,
just because you could get Elon Musk to show up in your movie doesn't mean you should have.
Yeah.
Because you might have... Just because you could get Paris Hilton to do, an extended cameo in your movie doesn't mean you should have. Okay, she was, the big name at the time. There's a few films that have Paris Hilton in them because she was the biggest name in the world at the time. Yeah. And it showed a lack of confidence on the part of the filmmaker to go, you know what, just in case, let's try and draw a few more eyeballs to this.
Yeah.
It's just because you can get these people doesn't mean you should use these people.
No, I definitely agree there.
Not all sports people and singers can act. Not everybody Shaquille O'Neal,
That's very true. Which could, with the star thing, there's also, regular people as well. Like, getting kind of like, just people who are kind of new to the acting
gig. And that idea of, using people, it's like, oh, we added authenticity because, everybody else on, in that scene, they weren't actors. They were all people who went to that school. Mm-hmm. And yet sometimes they're given lines and they deliver them like people who aren't actors. And you're like, that doesn't help them. That's not nice for them. That doesn't help the movie. It doesn't help anybody in the room. Get an actor.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Yeah, no, very much so. Like as we said, there's times in which this has worked, but the amount of times that it has worked to how many times it's drawn the eye a little bit away is a little. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly. Just because it's like, oh, we actually know all the people that were on that boat, and we've got them all to come and act. Okay, do any of them have lines? Yeah, those two do. Well, are you sure that those two are the two out of this group that can act?
Yeah.
Because if not, get two actors to replace them. They'll be sitting at home watching somebody play them and they'll be happier going, look, Matt Damon played me, or whatever the hell.
Yeah, and then there's the... then there's the whole director-writer version of that, which is just like... I
forgot that actually.
It comes from once again because you're one of the public or part of the event or something that you're in the thing, so some people can be just like, oh yeah, like the director or writer kind of being in it as well. It's a stay over from which is Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah,
but Alfred Hitchcock did it in a way that he was always in the background or in some kind of nothing that impacted.
And he'd proved that he had a presence on camera that he could use to his advantage anyway. Like, he qualified himself almost as a bit of an actor. Mm-hmm. But M. Night Shyamalan, in Shines and Signs and everything else, like M. Night Shyamalan, whether or not you like or don't like his movie making, the dude can't act. Like, he's gotten better. The last movie, Glass, he was slightly better in his cameo, but... Dude, don't put yourself in your films. And Stephen King, maybe you think about it too.
Stephen King, I didn't mind too much in It Part 2.
In Part 2,
because he's also in with Sons of Anarchy as well. He's a cleaner.
Yeah. Well, yeah, don't. You got to be careful if you're a writer or a director, and you're like, I'm gonna put myself in this scene. Oh, are you sure?
Yeah. I do like that someone should be like there going like.
Yeah, that's the friend.
Yeah,
that's what we are for each other. It's like that. Maybe don't.
Yeah,
just maybe don't.
Like, or okay, how about we do one shot with you?
Yeah,
and then one shot without you, and we'll see which one's better.
And then we'll use the one that we already know we're going to use.
I'm Doris Dinsdale. I'm from Nelly.
So it is very much like one of those things with an actor or a writer or director coming into the show. I do wish that their friend was just like, maybe just not.
Real friends tell you when not to do things. Mm-hmm. There's a lesson, kids out there. The people who tell you that you should or can do things, they might be your supporters and your friends, but the kid that's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't, that's the one that's trying to keep you from hurting yourself or doing something really dumb.
Yeah.
And on a film set, I'd say it's very rare that people in power have that friend with them. Looking at you, George Lucas, looking at the prequels. Nobody there to tell you to just
calm the hell down.
Put the green screen down and walk away.
So on to another one of our kind of just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's essentially swearing swearing, gore, and explosions. Just because you can put them into the movie doesn't mean you should, because it very much draws the eye away from your dialogue. And I know what you're doing. It's because you're not confident in the dialogue that much that you're trying to sneak in a little explosion. And I'm looking at the new Hellboy.
It's a great example, because when you said this, and I was like, well, what are you thinking? And you said Hellboy. Straight away I went, oh yeah, the new Hellboy. Completely, because it used gore in particular, I think.
Yeah.
And actually swearing as a crutch. Crutch is the right word for that.
Yep.
It hobbled along, trying to support itself on.
Yeah, like it got that R rating, which I was really excited for, because like a Hellboy with an R rating should have been good, but the way that they used it, it was trying to be, sadly, another movie, which we'll get onto in a minute. So like, yeah, because there's a lot of gore in Hellboy, which is just to kind of cover up or kind of make you go, kind of like, which is also my stave of just because CGI works for a lot of movies doesn't mean that you should also break away from actually built sets and props and stuff. Now, I'm not going to go back to my boy Del Toro kind of thing. No,
but practical effects and set building and real makeup, it's
yeah, but it's also with the whole thing of the gore kind of thing is like, you know, it takes away from us, and like, whereas you have like, you know, a thing that people can hold and move and stuff like that, because a lot of that gore was CGI'd kind of thing. So
and it just felt staccato in its kind of. It felt like somebody was doing, like some of the editing that I do in these videos, I will just hide something in through a cut, because they were like, oh, well, we need to get these two things to work together. What's our transition for this? I know, somebody's head's going to explode towards the camera now. Oh, Jesus, that's not good filmmaking.
Yeah, it's like full stops.
Yeah, exactly. Punctuations.
Film, you know, and it's not a good way of doing it, because your dialogue or an action, you know, like a meaningful action should be able to do that.
It kills the flow. The flow.
But that leads us on to our next one, which is just because you're R-rated doesn't mean that you're going to be Deadpool.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't try to be.
Exactly. You know, this was another one. I can't take credit for this. This is another one Paul brought to the table, and I was like, what are you? And you're like, oh, yeah. It's not going to automatically make you Deadpool, because Deadpool isn't good because it's an R rating. Deadpool happens to be R-rated and it's good.
Yeah.
And a lot of people since it have thought, oh, well, you know, like R-rated movies can now work. It's like, no, it's a byproduct of whatever the movie is. Make the movie good. Maybe then it'll need an R rating. Maybe then it won't.
Like it is kind of like, don't aim for an R rating. Aim for what your vision of the film is, and then if it happens to be R rated, then you know that, you know, that's what it needs to tell your story. Like as you said, Deadpool, like it doesn't feel like it was made to be an R-rated film. It very much was just like, this is the extreme of the Deadpool character.
This is the film we're going to make.
You know, that's it
label it as you will, and R is what landed.
Pretty much.
For because R is the rating in America for what we would call 18s here. Yeah. So at least UK and Ireland it's 18s. I'm not sure. I think mainland Europe, same thing. So R-rated is like the adult film, but not adult in that kind of XXX way. I think since then there's been a whole lot of talk, because Joker was an R-rated film, and it's the first $1 billion R-rated film. And people who are making the comment of, ooh, an R-rated film, it's like any film can make $1 billion if it's good enough. It could be a universal rated film or a G or whatever it's called in America. Like, you make The Lion King, the original animated thing, which I finally watched, by the way. We should talk. I thought it was okay. You make that, you'll get people to watch it because it's good, not because, oh, anybody can see it. It's like, no, you made a thing that everybody wanted to see.
Yeah.
That's how you make your $1 billion, guys.
Yeah, no, I agreed. Like, it's R rating doesn't automatically mean that you're going to be restricted or not make the, you know, it's...
Yeah, rating should be applied, not aimed for.
Yeah. That's like it on the money, because like you got Logan, which is an R-rated film or 18s film, and like, you know, it's not like, I think it's because it's violent and there's some, like, you know, not over the top kind of gore stuff, but it's like,
it's incredibly appropriate.
Yeah,
it's incredible. I'm actually probably going to watch that tonight after recording, because the minute you said it, I was like, I have to see that film again very soon.
Yeah, it's a very good film.
It's appropriate. Everything about it is appropriate. If you do what you need to do, find out what rating you get, and you will get the right audience, because you will have tried to make the best film you can.
Yeah.
And if you're good enough, Mr. Mangold was good enough. He made a great film. Are we gonna throw in the one thing before we close out?
Yeah. So the one thing that we wanted to throw in is
remakes and reboots. So the title of this video is "Just Because You Can Doesn't Mean You Should." We're not going to go into this in detail, but let's just put it out there. We all know that sometimes just because you can remake or reboot a film doesn't mean you should. We might talk about that at length in another video, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So
on that kind of note, just because we can, we went a little long in this video, and just because you should maybe hit like, subscribe, and share this with all your friends. We do have weekly videos, so you should also come back and see us again.
Yeah, no, very much so. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the discussion-esque video that we kind of did, because we might do a little bit more every now and again.
Yeah, throw a comment down below if you'd like to hear us rant on about something else, because I think we might do a few more of these videos.
Yeah. So, which is, I've been Paul.
And I've been Patrick.
And we've been Hear Us Out.
See you next time. Oh, sorry, I went for see you next time with you there. I was like,
bye.